Good morning. And so, I don't think I get to say anything before you start asking questions, so go ahead.
First question right there. Yeah.
What's the advantage of being part of the green team?
What's the advantage of being part of the green team? Well, being in the Green Party and being involved in political change, social change, making sure that this country and this planet are as healthy and secure and, the word is sustainable, but making sure that we actually make a difference in the next year or two or three. Our party is the one that comes up with the fresh ideas and tells the truth about things. And then we hope other parties will take our ideas once we prove to them that Canadians like our ideas. So it's basically the advantage of it is that you can feel you're really making a difference and you're not sucked into a system that's entrenched in the old way of doing things.
Right in the back.
How do you think that, how far down do you think that, that the pollution will go down in the next 25 years?
How much do I think pollution will go down in the next 25 years? In terms of the burning of fossil fuels creating greenhouse gases, it will be cut in half. Certainly, it has to be 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. That's what the scientists tell us. So there's a combination of things happening. Quick answer is it's not just going to be because people say you must do it. It's going to be because the new technologies that are coming up are cooler and don't pollute and provide a much better society. So we're going to do a quick shift.
Well, let's just, when someone answers a question sometimes, and they've said something, sometimes jumping in and asking for more detail. Can you think of anything that Elizabeth just said that you sort of think, how does that work? Okay. What's the question you might ask in the back?
How would the change not pollute?
How would the change not pollute?
The machines, I think.
Right, go ahead.
How would the machines not pollute?
How does new technology not pollute? Okay, well, let's look at the old technology. You've learned about the Industrial Revolution in school, right? The Industrial Revolution was all about figuring out that you could burn coal, that's how they started, to make a steam engine that would do lots of the work that lots of people used to do. It was very cool, it expanded our society, but it was relying on something, burning fossil fuels that released a lot of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. Also some other nasties from coal, but let's stick with greenhouse gases. What we need to find then is not necessarily that we stop driving cars, but that we don't use an internal combustion engine that releases greenhouse gases. So there's several options. There's something called, there's electric vehicles that are possible. There's also going to fuel cell vehicles. Now a fuel cell vehicle relies on hydrogen for the fuel and all that comes out the waste pipe. There's fuel cell buses that were invented by a company from British Columbia right now on the streets of downtown Chicago, and if you were to put your mouth at the tailpipe, there's nothing dangerous. It's just water vapor. So it's a complete shift. You can get energy from the sun. And solar energy, photovoltaic cells could be on the roofing tiles of every house, and then guess what? You wouldn't need to pay for your electricity. All your electricity would come from your roofing tiles. They've already made buildings like that, and there's whole housing units like that in Australia that just rely on electricity from the direct conversion of solar to electricity through photovoltaic cells in your roofing tiles. There's a lot of things that deliver all we need in our society without pollution at all.
Right there.
What do you do about that pollution to the ocean?
Pollution to the ocean is a huge issue. By the way, one of the biggest problems with greenhouse gases is not just that they warm the atmosphere, but they threaten the whole life of the ocean through acidification of the ocean. So there are a lot of ways that the ocean needs to be protected. It needs to be protected from things that are generally called land-based sources of marine pollution, sewer systems, runoff of pesticide, toxic waste. There's the acidification of the ocean by bringing down greenhouse gases. And what we have to do is show respect for life in the oceans. We tend to ignore it because we look at the surface and everything looks fine. Everything is not fine. We've got plastics in the ocean that kill wildlife. We've got bad fishing practices, pollution. So protecting the oceans is done through laws and regulations and bringing down greenhouse gases.
In the back. Yeah.
Do you believe in 2012? Do you think the world's going to end in 2012?
Do I think the world is going to end in 2012? No, I do not. And furthermore, I think people who think that, based on thinking the Mayan calendar ends in 2012, need to talk to smart people who've studied Mayan culture, who will tell you that in 2012 the Mayans would plan to start a new calendar. So there's an awful lot of nonsense out there, and the world will not end in 2012.
Right here.
What do you think about the cove in Japan?
What do I think about what in Japan?
The cove where all the dolphins.
Oh, yeah. No, we have to protect, in terms of the damage we do to our oceans, there's also the issue of species that are at risk. And some fishing practices, particularly the killing of dolphins, the killing of whales, is something that we've been trying to stop. And I think that we need to enforce those rules and make sure that that kind of killing practice stops.
Right there. Yeah.
How do you get the media's attention?
I do almost anything. How do I get the media's attention? I've gone on Rick Mercer and cut down a tree with a chainsaw in the pouring rain. Sometimes I hold press conferences where I'm very, very serious, and we release lots of reports that give data. Like this Monday, when Parliament should have opened, I was on Parliament Hill to release the Green Party plan to reduce the structural deficit that's being created by Mr. Harper that means that you'll have a bigger debt when you grow up and higher taxes, because unless we change that with good economic policies. So I rely on being serious and providing good policy. I rely on doing silly things sometimes. I was on Test the Nation Sunday night on CBC. Dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. However, maybe the media noticed.
Good on the side, yeah.
How do you embrace the thinking of others around you?
How do I embrace the thinking of others around the media? Well, the Greens are a very open party. We look for good ideas from anywhere, and we will promote good ideas. So that's why people have a hard time figuring out, I don't know if you've heard of this idea that some political parties are on the left and other political parties are on the right. They have a very difficult time figuring out where we are, because if it's a really good idea, we don't care where it came from. So we will embrace a good idea wherever it came from.
In the front.
Yeah, front.
What are some of the things you'd like to change?
Some of the things two things? Only two?
That's it, baby.
Two things I want to change. I would like to change the world from a reliance on fossil fuels to a reliance on renewables, and I would like to end poverty.
Right there.
What are you doing to get Green Party members in Parliament?
That is an excellent question. What am I doing to get Green Party members in the Parliament? Well, I hope to be one of the first, if not the first. I want other people there with me, but I'm running right next door in Saanich Gulf Islands, and so I'll be running we run candidates in every riding across the country. That's 308 candidates in 308 ridings, and I'm knocking on doors.
Right here. Yeah.
Have I always wanted to do this job? No. I only went into politics a bit more than 3 years ago. Most of my life I've done environmental work. I started working in the environmental movement when I was 13, which was way back in 1970, which was the first Earth Day. I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to make a difference. And it's only recently that I decided that the best way to do it was by getting Green Party members in Parliament.
Right here.
If I was desperate, would I give everyone a hybrid? I don't know. I don't know if I could be that desperate that I'd be able to give everyone a hybrid. But hybrid cars, I drive a Prius, and it's a very fun car to drive, and it uses a lot less gas. But that's only one of the new technologies coming along. What I really like is safe, secure bike lanes and much better mass transit, so you only had to use a car very rarely.
In the back here, Claude. Yeah. Yeah, you.
What am I doing to fight global warming? But can I ask you a question first? Do you want me to answer what my party advocates for all of society, or what I'm doing personally? Which one did you mean? On a personal level, I don't eat meat. I make sure that I use as little energy as possible, which means I try to avoid taking the Prius out when I can help it. I make sure I live within walking distance or a bus distance of where I work. And I'm very careful to compost and avoid waste. Composting, you heard the mayor mention how composting heats things up. Well, composting keeps that methane gas from forming through getting oxygen in while you compost. You don't want to be putting lots of garbage, particularly things like banana peels and apple cores and things, in garbage to go to a dump, because that will also create greenhouse gases. So, and I don't waste water, because water takes energy to bring it to your house. There are a whole range of things you can do in your own life to reduce greenhouse gases.
Right there.
As you said, you want to create cars and buses that will create fossil fuels, but most of those cars are much more expensive, and lots of those people aren't buying them.
All right, so the question is, those cars are more expensive, so if we're moving away from fossil fuels, it's more expensive. This is a message about economics, right? I'm going to just explain what we think about the economics. We might think something is cheap because all the garbage it creates is somebody else's problem, we're not paying for it. But if we ignore the global warming problem, we could end up with all of this area being underwater. That would not be a very safe decision. It would cost us much more to deal with that problem than to make sure we get the prices right on what fossil fuels really cost us. So in the long run, what we have to do is make sure that fossil fuels really pay for the costs that they are for society. And when that happens, people won't want the cost of the things like solar and wind and tidal power and better mass transit and bike lanes will all be a lot cheaper, and the cost of using cars will become much more expensive. And when that tips, everybody knows which way to go.
Okay, right there. Got it.
What changes do you think Copenhagen created in Canada?
I was at the Copenhagen summit. Copenhagen was a complete, utter failure. Nothing was done. Nothing changed anything. So we have to keep working because the negotiations aren't over. That's the good news. The negotiations are not over. We keep working.
Okay, there's a girl right there.
Why do you like the Green Party?
Why do I like the Green Party? So many reasons. We're the only political party that's committed to say the truth about issues, no matter what the polls tell us. So if the polls suddenly said Canadians don't believe in global warming, they don't want to hear about it, we'd still talk about it because we know the facts and we know the science. We're going to keep pushing the other parties to do the right thing. Another thing I like about the Green Party is it's very democratic and very grassroots. So even though I'm the leader, I'm not the boss. Everybody can be involved and help create policies for the party. Another thing I like about it is it's the only party that's committed to peace and nonviolence. So it's got a lot of really good values into it.
Hannah, does the fellow in front of you have a question? Right? No. There.
No.
Okay. Right there.
Would a subway or SkyTrain help the transit move along?
Yes. Well, the question is, would the subway or a SkyTrain help transit move along? Every city has its different issues, and places that have dense populations, like a bigger city like Vancouver, can have more things in mass transit than a smaller place like Victoria. But there's no place anywhere on the earth that can't benefit from better mass transit. And if you've traveled in some of the developing countries, you know you can stand by the side of a road anywhere and a bus comes along and takes you to where you're going. Our society got built around the idea that everybody will own a car and that's their mobility. There's another way to design things, and better bus service, better mass transit of all kinds, reduces costs for people because you don't need to keep driving your own car to get around, and makes the city work better and reduces congestion on our roads.
Ask yourself, how many ideas have you written down from what Elizabeth has said so far? Give me fingers. 1, 2. The good news is you still have a little more time to come up with it. There you are.
What is the worst thing that's happening in the earth that we can fix?
Fossil fuels.
What's the question?
So what is the worst thing happening on the earth that we can fix? Now, there's lots of things that are horrific on this earth. This wonderful young woman asked about Haiti, and I thought about it when the mayor gave his answer about the abandoned buildings and the problem. He said, we need to have the money for the seismic reinforcements. Did anyone put those two things together? Because Haiti's very poor, that's why the earthquake was so bad. The buildings just collapsed. The buildings in Victoria, we're also in an area that could have earthquakes. But our buildings have to be reinforced because we don't want them falling on top of people in an earthquake. So there's bad things on Earth, and one of the worst things on Earth is the unfairness that the rich people on the planet, and that's very few of us, of all the people on planet Earth, over 6 billion of them, 20% of them create 80% of the garbage. Okay? 80% of the resources are used by 20%. Which means the other 80% of people on planet Earth get our leftovers, the 20% we're not using. So that's a really bad thing. But if I have to have one answer, I'd say fossil fuels, because if we don't move fast on that, we can't fix any of the other problems because the impacts of the climate crisis will wipe out any other progress we're making on other things.
There.
I heard you talk about poverty. What do you think about the story of It Paul?
The story of,
Paul.
I don't know that I know the story of It Paul.
Well,
I'll be the last. What do you think about flying cars?
Flying cars. I think flying.
An actual flying car has been created. What do you think about having flying cars in the future?
Unless they don't create any, I don't know how.
They have wheels, they have the engines.
Okay, she's got the question.
A flying car sounds very interesting as long as it's not generated by fossil fuels. I would answer your question on poverty. Our solution to poverty is to bring in something called a guaranteed livable income. That means that no Canadian would ever be poor. Everybody would have enough to live on. Then you could make more money from there. And everybody else, as soon as you start making enough money, you pay back the taxes. So it works out very, very well. And it would mean, as the mayor said, the problem of homelessness is kind of passed down from federal government. I'm at the federal level, right? I'm a federal politician. The mayor is a municipal politician. And the problems that the city gets from things being passed down and dumping on the mayor, well, if we could fix them federally, if we had no poverty across Canada through a good federal system, then when we had people who were homeless, we'd know for sure their problem wasn't that they couldn't afford a roof over their head. Their problem was mental illness, or their problem was addiction, and then you can target the help in that way. So it's important to address poverty, and I think flying cars sound very cool, but I didn't know enough to answer your question.
Right there.
Where are you? So I can't quite hear you. Speaking of Haiti, how do we play a role in helping with supplies and getting relief there? I think the Canadian public, I mean, I did it, a lot of people did. We used our website to say, these are the charities, go here to help these different groups. A lot of us donated, so the donations from Canadians are now up to $67 million last I checked. I went to a fundraiser on Parliament Hill on Monday night, even though the House is prorogued. The Prime Minister shut down the Parliament, but a lot of MPs are still there, and we had a good fundraiser on Parliament Hill. To get supplies and relief there requires a lot of quick and coordinated action, and I think the United Nations has been doing a good job. I think the Government of Canada did a good job getting Canadian help there. But the long-term story will be, why is Haiti the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere? How do we make sure that as Haiti rebuilds, that the systems in that society work better for people who live there?
The last question for this series. Yeah.
Have
Have
you accomplished anything that you wanted?
I accomplished anything I wanted to do? I've accomplished so many things that make me happy, I can't begin to tell you. I'll still quick. Of environmental issues, I worked in the government in the mid-1980s, and I played a role, which I'm very proud of, in creating the Guayahanas National Park. The southern third of Haida Gwaii, the Free Child Islands, is protected forever. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of getting laws passed that reduce pollution. I'm very proud of my children and my grandchildren, and I think it's not really an accomplishment, but when your kids turn out well, you feel like, well, it's a blessing, and you feel really proud. So environmental work and my kids, I'm very proud of all those things.
That is it for this round.